First of all, I'd like to remind ourselves that we have 6 people here who are going to pedal the show. So every now and then, if I feel that they're slacking, because I need to watch some of the technical sides of this, I might say work harder, but it's also a little bit of reminder from yourselves that maybe just remember that this is not a free lunch.
Well, we've been here in the Science Gallery to do a public briefing on behalf of Stop Climate Chaos about the new IPCC report on climate science, both from the sense of the basic content by Professor Sweeney, and then from what civil society thinks this means in terms of the consequences for us and the actions we need.
I'd like to just go on a little bit to just explain a little bit of who Stop Climate Chaos are. We're a coalition of nearly 30 organisations who have come together around the issue of climate change. We're here today to review the IPCC report of Working Group 1, the physical science basis of climate change. Stop Climate Chaos is a coalition formed on 4 basic ideas. Our first is around the idea of an international agreement that binds governments internationally to keeping the rise in temperature below 2 degrees centigrade. Our second agreed action relates to Ireland's own role in preventing climate change and in creating solid framework of legislation within which we can actually steer our economy towards a low carbon trajectory. Our third call relates to the developing world and ensuring that there is access to additional appropriate and adequate resources to enable them to adapt to the current and future impacts of climate change. And our fourth act relates to the natural environment, and that natural environment considerations are included in all adaptation and mitigation measures within Ireland.
But one of the conclusions, I think, from this report has been the increased estimates of sea level rise. The 4th assessment report was extremely conservative about sea level rise. Now you can see there we're talking about nearly up to 1 metre by the end of the century, and that does pose problems, as we'll see later on, for places like Ireland, for places and cities which have grown onto the ocean by reclaiming land. So 4 degrees is bad. To try and avoid 2 degrees is current government policy, is international policy under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And so what do we need to do to avoid that? Well, the message is quite clear. We have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions very considerably. We have to encourage a peaking of global emissions sometime in the next decade. After that, the window will close. After that, it'll become very, very difficult indeed to avoid that 2-degree value. It's already perhaps only a 50-50 shot, but if we don't do anything by 2020, we will face an extremely bleak future indeed. So we have to communicate the scientific message. As far as scientists are concerned, the climate science is fairly settled. You find, for example, among active publishing climatologists, 99% have no doubts about the anthropogenic role. But among the public, there has been a very mischievous campaign of misinformation. And so public opinion has certainly not followed the scientific opinion. Probably if you were to ask the public today, you would find a majority of people who would not believe the scientific outcomes of this report.
I think the most striking element of the report for me is that scientists are now as certain that humanity is causing climate change as they are that smoking causes cancer. That's something we can all understand, and we all know therefore that action needs to be taken, despite the fact there'll be vested interests who don't want action, just as there was in the tobacco industry. But I think what the report means for the Irish government is they have to really strengthen the climate bill that they have been drafting this year. At the moment, it doesn't have a 2050 target, which is like a car without an engine. It won't get you where you want to go. And the independent committee that it uses to scrutinise Irish government performance isn't independent enough. It can't even publish its own reports. So the Stop Climate Chaos Coalition has been really keen to see that bill strengthened, and the government now has promised to produce its final draft before the end of the year, and we very much hope that based on the science that today's report shows, they will toughen and strengthen that bill to be fit for purpose.